In 2025, are external SSDs a valid way of storing your games? Well, we're going to answer that in today's video as we've tested both an external SSD versus a more conventional internal one, and we've tested both gaming results and loading times as well. So let's find out how they stack up against each other. Yes, external SSDs really aren't that slow anymore because you can find premium ones like the X10 Pro from Crucial, which go up to around 2 GB read and write, which is extremely fast, especially over USB. Now, the biggest benefit of one of these is it's really portable. If you had multiple PCs or you needed to make a quick and easy storage upgrade to your laptop or something like that, that's where external SSDs come in, because you can just take it out of one PC and just put it into another with no disassembly required. And representing Team Internal NVMe is the Crucial P310. I promise that Crucial isn't sponsoring this video or anything. They didn't even send out the products for this video in particular. They're just products I've got from working with them over the last few or so months. Anyways, the P310 is a more budget-friendly Gen 4 NVMe drive, and it will clock up to around, I think, 7.6 GB read, and I can't quite remember the right off the top of my head. It will be down there somewhere. Either way, these speeds are much quicker than the external SSD, but to be honest, for gaming, I'm not too sure if this will make a difference. Anyways, to find out for sure, we've tested the X10 versus the P310. I've said 10 a lot in this video, haven't I? Anyways, we're using the NTFS file storage system on both of these drives. Anyways, all testing has been done at 1440p in our 13700K and RTX 3080 testing system. Yes, the GOAT is back. I told you it'd be back. We're testing with the latest Game Ready driver, which is version I cannot quite remember, so it would be listed down below there, and resizable bar has been enabled. And last but not least, we're testing both gaming performance and loading time. So let's get straight into it. In Oblivion Remastered, we basically see no difference in terms of performance, which admittedly is a good thing. Yeah, the average and the 1% lows go up by 1 frame per second, which is less than 1%, so that's well within margin of error. So if you wanted to play on a relatively decent external SSD in Oblivion Remastered, yeah, you're not going to really be seeing any performance differences here. And the same is true in Cyberpunk, because we get the exact same average frame rate, but the 1% low goes down by 1 FPS with the external SSD. Once again, if you wanted to play this game on one of those compared to a conventional NVMe, yeah, you won't be having any problems. It's perfectly fine. Yet again, it's exactly the same in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, because there's basically no performance difference across both the SSDs. Yeah, the 1% low went up by 1 with the external SSD, but yet again, well within margin of error, you won't notice this. However, in God of War Ragnarok, we do see some performance uplift. With the external SSD, the average frame rate goes up by 4 frames per second, and the 1% low goes up by 5 frames per second. Now, this is an increase with the average frame rate of 6%, which is not within margin of error, and I reran the tests and this is what I was getting. So yeah, I guess an external SSD is quite good for God of War Ragnarok. Maybe there's just some underlying way of how the game's built which favours external SSDs over P310, for instance, so I'm really not sure what's going on here. Star Wars Jedi Survivor goes in the opposite direction, favouring the internal SSD, as we go down on the average frame rate by around 7% here. So yeah, the external SSD is not liking Star Wars Jedi Survivor for some reason. However, just like God of War Ragnarok, I'm not sure if you'd notice this, to be honest, as it's not a massive difference. And to be fair, this game is kind of inconsistent is the word I'm looking for, so that's something to bear in mind. Counter-Strike 2 is a similar story to the original 3, where both for the average frame rates are well within margin of error, but the 1% lows go up quite a bit with the external SSD. Now, this could be down to run-to-run variance, and the benchmark I take is within a bot deathmatch, and it's not on Rails, so there could be some variance there. Cyberpunk 2077 with ray tracing enabled doesn't really see any performance differences, and in fact we got the exact same average frame rate of 69. Very nice. However, with the X10 Pro, the 1% low performance is ever so slightly better compared to the P310, so will you notice this in gameplay? Probably not. So for the gaming performance, it's kind of boring really, like not much has changed, and to be honest, this is probably a good thing because it means that either SSD is perfectly valid for gaming. Now, some games reacted slightly differently to the external SSD, like God of War Ragnarok had slightly better performance with it, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor had slightly better performance with the internal drive. But to be honest, I don't think this is make or break because the biggest difference with the average frame rate was like 7%, which admittedly can be noticeable, but when you're getting 105 FPS compared to like 112 for instance, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. We've not just gone over gaming performance, as loading times are a big factor in SSD performance, and in Oblivion Remastered, the external SSD actually loaded up slightly faster by a second. Will you benefit from this very much? Probably not, but it's an improvement, let's be honest. If you're concerned about load times in Cyberpunk 2077, don't be, because both SSDs got the exact same time of 8 seconds. So yeah, you could choose external or internal, you'll still get the exact same loading times. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is an outlier here because the external SSD is 23% longer in loading up the game. Yes, this is not particularly brilliant, but it's only like an extra 6 seconds, which yeah, it can be annoying, especially as quit saving is a bit of a strategy in this game if you don't have your savior snaps or whatever. But yeah, internal is probably the best way to go for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. God of War Ragnarok, however, sees a win for the X10 Pro because we get 2 seconds shaved off of our loading times, which is great to see. But then again, when it's 17 compared to 19, you're not really going to notice the difference here anyway, so yeah, either SSD is totally fine. Star Wars Jedi Survivor has got the exact same loading time of 12 seconds, so there's absolutely no problems here. Both SSDs are relatively fast and there's absolutely zero issues, so you could go with either one here. Counter-Strike 2 sees loading time slashed by 3 seconds with the X10 Pro, which is pretty great, but then again, when you're loading into a competitive match, it takes a while for everyone else to load in, so it really doesn't make a difference, to be honest, and either SSD would be perfectly fine, even a SATA one, so yeah, SSD speed doesn't matter in Counter-Strike all too much. And just like rasterization, Cyberpunk with ray tracing is exactly the same, as both SSDs took 8 seconds to load up the world, so there's absolutely zero issues here. Yet again, either SSD is perfectly fine for Cyberpunk 2077. As for loading times, this is where things start to change ever so slightly, because for the most part they were pretty much identical across the board, but there were games like Kingdom Come Deliverance which heavily favoured the internal SSD. I'm not too sure what this is down to, but I repeated the tests and this is what it come out as. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 might prefer the higher speeds of the internal drive. But other than that, most games loaded in the exact amount of time or even slightly faster on the external drive, so yeah, there is that. So I can confidently say that gaming on an external SSD really isn't going to hold back your gaming experience, as from what we've seen from the results today, it doesn't really change a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. Yes, some games are either loaded slightly slower on the external drive or they loaded slightly faster. It depends on the game that you play in. So if you needed the portability of an external SSD, like maybe you're playing on a laptop or you've got 2 different PCs at 2 different locations and you didn't want to buy 2 different drives, you could just buy one of these and just move it around with you. It's not going to hold you back in any capacity. But if you don't need to move around a lot and you game on one PC like me for instance, an internal drive is going to suit you quite a bit better. It's more of a conventional method of storing your games, and not only that, internal NVMe's like Crucial's P310 are quite a bit cheaper than their external counterparts, and they've got higher speeds as well, which as we've seen doesn't really matter that much for gaming. Anyways, if you do other stuff outside of gaming, yeah, an internal NVMe is definitely going to be what you're going to want. So I guess if you were on the fence about getting an external SSD and you were worried about its performance, you don't need to be worried about it. It gets on perfectly fine. Anyways, if you want to pick up either of these SSDs, there will be links in the description down below with my Amazon affiliate links. I do make a small kickback from these, but it does really help out the channel. Anyways, if you want to see how we upgraded this PC to a brand new graphics card, you can watch it in a video up here. With that being said, I'll catch you in the next one.